So I've been using the new iPads for a couple months now, probably about 2 months, and I was just dead wrong when it came to which iPad I would find the most use case out of. I thought for sure the 11-inch iPad Pro was going to be my main device, and yet for some reason consistently I end up choosing the 13-inch iPad Air time and time again. With these iPads, I thought for sure that I was going to use the Magic Keyboard all the time. Well, it turns out I'm not really that big of a fan of the Magic Keyboard. There's a couple reasons why. One, the hinge on that thing, it's just too big, and it's like offset a little bit, enough so that it can scratch other things that are in your backpack. So that's a little frustrating. I thought that was gonna be something that I was just over the moon about. And it is very good at typing, very good with the trackpad, but it's just a little bit heavy. I mean, a little bit heavy is probably too soft. It is very heavy, but it's also, with that hinge, it's just gonna scratch stuff up over time. The other reason I haven't enjoyed the 11-inch iPad Pro is because it is just too expensive of a device for what it does. Like, it's an iPad, it's a good iPad, it's a great iPad even, but when you're paying $1,100, $1,300, whatever it is, especially once you get the Magic Keyboard and the Apple Pencil, I just don't really think that it's that worthwhile of a device. It is very, very good at what it does, but we've said this multiple times, where macOS is on, right now with macOS 18 coming out, it's good, but it's still going to be an iPad. So when people spend that much money, I mean, that's a significant amount of money. I just don't feel like the iPad Pro is really all that worth it. Now, the biggest reason for me why I ended up going with the 13-inch iPad Air as kind of my main device is because I'm taking a lot of notes, and for me, that size iPad, it's just kind of nice to have that extra space. But the biggest thing is that I present every single week, week in and week out as a pastor. I'm preaching. So having a device that has the largest screen with great, big text on it is really helpful. That way I can step back, from the pulpit, can step back from my iPad and actually preach from a little bit further away. I can still see the text. And so for me, I thought the 11-inch iPad Pro was going to work, and it would, right? If I only had the option of having one iPad, that 11-inch iPad would work totally fine. It's a beautiful iPad, but because I have a tech channel, I have the kind of opportunity to have both iPads. I end up going with the iPad Air 13-inch multiple times over. Now, with my iPad Air, I don't put any kind of keyboard with it. I don't put any kind of case on it. I actually have a leather case that I put it in, like a leather pouch that I put it in, and it's a gorgeous leather pouch, but what it does is it cuts down on all that weight. If I had this iPad, the 13-inch iPad Air with the Magic Keyboard and the Apple Pencil, that does get very weighty. Now, I have a 14-inch MacBook Pro that I use as my daily driver, and so if I had the 14-inch MacBook Pro with the 13-inch 13-inch iPad Air, it would just be too much weight. But because I keep that iPad by itself without a case or anything like that, and without that huge Magic Keyboard, it's not that heavy. And so I've been thinking a lot more about this recently. I just don't think I'm a fan of having an iPad with a keyboard. I understand why you would if that's one of your only devices, but I like the iPad to just be an iPad. I don't need it to be a computer replacement. And so for me, it doesn't really make all that much sense to have something like the Magic Keyboard on it. I actually find a lot more use out of the pencil. So I just prefer personally to have the weight savings in my backpack because I do move around a lot. I mean, if you've been watching my channel for any amount of time, you know that I like working in different locations for a couple hours here, a couple hours there. And so if I'm moving around a lot, I would rather not have the extra weight with the keyboard. I'd rather just have the iPad be what it was designed to be. And so my experience so far with the 13-inch Air is it's fantastic. I do know that I would love to have, that extra 120 hertz screen. Like maybe a 13-inch iPad Pro would be perfect for me. However, the price of that thing, it just doesn't justify how expensive it is. I don't need to spend, half of a mortgage payment on an iPad. It's just crazy. And so for me, that iPad Air is awesome. I do, in a previous video, I talked about going with the iPad Pro M2 from last year just to save some money. I still stick by that, but because I have a tech YouTube channel, I need to have updated iPads to make content on it. And so for me, it makes more sense to stick with the brand new iPads. But like my daily driver for an iPad is either going to be the iPad mini because I like to read all the time, or it's going to be the iPad Air 13 because I present so much in my job. So in my original video about those iPads, I said that, it's like holding a TV, it's carrying around a TV. And I still think I'm right in that, but the issue is I kind of need something large like a TV when I'm preaching, and so it just kind of makes sense for my workflow. I think for most people, 99% of people, go with that M2 iPad Pro or the iPad, the new iPad Pro is amazing. So if you really love iPads and you get that, you're not going to be disappointed. But for me and my workflow, I was really shocked by this, but that 13-inch iPad Air ended up being exactly what I needed. And I think just in general, the good news is any iPad you get right now, it is going to be a good iPad for you. Like none of them, even the iPad mini, I've said this in a few videos now, but even the iPad mini is just such a good iPad for the price. You're not gonna feel like it's slow. If you get the iPad Pro, the M4 version, it's gonna feel amazing for so many years. If you get the M2 13-inch, it's just going to be an awesome product. None of these products right now feel bad. I've had a ton of people in my comments ask me, which one should I go with, this one or that one? And they're kind of getting all up in their head about the small details, and I understand you are spending a lot of your hard-earned money. You should stress out about the details, but once you make the decision, don't have buyer's remorse. Like, you made a good decision because all the iPads in the lineup right now are great iPads. You're not going to be disappointed with any of the ones that you actually get. So every iPad has pros, every iPad has cons. Whatever you decide, it's going to be good. Tell me in the comments below, which iPad did you go with? Are you on the M2, from last year, the Pro from last year? Are you on the M4 from this year, or are you going with the M2 Air? Let me know. Guys, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.